Welcome to the Instinctive Influencers podcast, a show where influence becomes one of your tools for success. Now, here are your hosts, Brian Weber and Ed Haley.
Hi, I'm Brian.
I am Ed.
It's that I don't know if everybody knows this. That's Ed. He's been on the show a few times. We've missed him because he's been super busy, like crazy busy, man. It was good to get to chat with you before the show, but what can you fill in our audience? Let them know how busy you were, man.
Well, I mean, if you watch the news,
Yeah.
So on top of, I travel a lot for work. So on top of that, we have this Operation Allied Refuge going on, right? So like bringing the folks from Afghanistan, but Ramstein is one of the hubs in Europe. So a lot of them are coming from out of that region and into Ramstein before their onward movement to wherever their safe haven or whatever is going to be. So tents had to be built and facilities, and then on top of that, then we got to give them stuff and receive them, and so there's a lot of all hands on decks. So we tried. My first time I tried to run shifts. Didn't work out well. Shifts turned into we need everybody because just the flights were coming quicker than the facilities were getting built. So very, very, very busy with that. And hopefully, I believe we're going to talk about something about that in the future and kind of how it all works.
Next show, man. Next show, we're gonna hit upon stuff like that.
Yeah. So just that, and then your day to day, and then the travel for work. I mean,
yeah. I mean, you went over your travel. You kind of went over your travel schedule with me a few minutes ago. Like when did you stop traveling, man? And that's why I brought up like the freaking flyer miles.
Yes. I get to stop traveling when I go on week. When I travel to the States, I get to take some time from traveling for a few weeks. So,
it's busy. That's right. You're gonna head November, December. Yeah. Dang, man.
Yeah. Go see my sister get married.
Yeah. That's it, so man.
That'd be interesting. This is the first time I've been to one of her weddings. I guess that's not nice to say.
Well, this would be the first. Like, when was the last time you went to the States was for your cousin, wasn't it?
It was February of 19.
Yeah. So
here we are, August of 21.
Wow, bro. It's been a while. Yeah, I get you. Yeah. Michelle and I, we have not been back to Tennessee since we left, and it'll be just about 2 years since we've been back.
Well, I'm going to need y'all to remedy that because that may be my final destination upon retiring. So we're going to need that to get fixed.
Oh, yeah. Well, believe me, we're going to retire there one day. That's where we're going to live when we're done because that's her home, my home. It's just, man, I mean, I don't know if many listeners have ever been to that area of Tennessee, like the Nashville area, the outskirts, just all those. It's such a nice area. And if you want to go, you want to go to Florida, you want to go to the East Coast, you want to go straight down to the Gulf Coast. It doesn't take long at all, like 6-7 hours, and you're there. If you're driving, if you're flying, it's like 2-hour flights.
Yeah, we used to drive down to the Gulf Coast. The wife and I from that area. We used to drive down to Panama City Beach area, and I mean we're older, so we would stop in Alabama and stay the night. But at Maxwell Air Force Base, we used to stay the night just because, like, after a while, I can't. I'd only drive in 5, 6, 7 hours, but.
No, man.
So it's easy. So it's very high. So our list pretty much goes from just north of the Clarksville area all the way south as far as Panama City. So that's north-south. That's our limit. And then
that's a pretty big limit.
Tallahassee to Destin, Florida. So it's narrow. It's long, but it's a narrow limit.
Okay.
So basically Tennessee, Alabama, or Florida panhandle is the final stop.
The Haley area of operations. Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, I get you. Yeah, man. I totally get you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Hey, so we haven't been on in a while. I did an episode without you because you couldn't be on, and it wasn't too bad. I want to say, and I think then we did the Styles of Leadership, right?
Yeah.
But then we're going to get into a topic. It's like we do a lot of things that deals with leadership, but we haven't really focused so much on the follower or the subordinate of it. And that's what we got here today is we're going to actually look at subordinate type stuff, which I like this article. I've read it multiple times. I think I remember reading it when it first came out. Yeah, May 2018 is when this guy wrote this. And it was actually written by a command sergeant major. He was part of the asymmetric warfare group, I guess. But it's called, and this article, for those of you out there, if you're listening, this article can be found in the NCO Journal. It's a good, actually, I like a lot of stuff they've been putting in there. It seems like it's really building and becoming better over the years.
Yeah.
But this one's called Followership, Avoiding Being a Toxic Subordinate. Before we jump into it, Ed, when you think of that, you think of that followership, avoid being a toxic. What are some of the thoughts that come to mind?
Well, the Army and the military, whatever, we've spent a lot of time focused on toxic leadership, and it's become such a common thing to hear, oh, they're toxic or their leadership style is toxic. We've talked about it on here, and there's tons of articles about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you talk about the followership, it's another way of looking at it, and it feeds into the general like military, or I keep wanting to say military, but it feeds into a leadership kind of model, right? Like you have your toxic leaders, but you have your toxic followers too. And I think throughout our long, lengthy careers, both of us have probably encountered quite a few of these. I've also seen ones who I would classify as being a toxic follower, but flip the script and then become a great leader. Over time and space, they learn from their. So I think that's important. I do remember, not this article, but I remember this was starting to become a thing around when I went to the Master Leader course, which was, wait a minute, 2018. Yeah. I do remember this becoming a thing, like the discussion of, okay, the leader's toxic, but what about the followers? And it's not a finger pointing exercise by no means. And I think we're going to learn that today.
Oh, absolutely. And so wrapping it up into a ball right now, this is what I think. One, I love this article and what it brings to the forefront, but there's some things I disagree with, some things I do agree. Mm-hmm. One of the things I do see in this, Ed, is I feel myself in some of this, like as if I was the one being the toxic subordinate or not being a good subordinate. And even today, I think to myself, am I acting in a manner that is worthy of that? Or is it kind of like worthy of being a good subordinate or bad subordinate? So, I'm pretty stoked about getting into this one. I think what we're going to see here is people will probably identify the same thing. And what I hope we can do, not only identify things, but also offer up some solutions or ways of looking at things. How about a different point of view or perspective that'll help people kind of, get through those rough waters. All right. So let's start right off the bat. I wanted to read what he had wrote in here in the very beginning. And it talks about bad leaders and bad followers. I'm gonna use the terms organization instead of saying U.S. Army, stuff like that. Just so you guys are, I'll say it now. Obviously the opinions that Ed and I have are not representation of the U.S. Army, but we hope to represent our families and our lifestyles to the best we can, and that people will be proud of. So right off the bat, where he says here, he talks about bad leaders and followers. Search the internet for the term toxic leader, and you find a host of definitions and articles. Now, there's one that we've shared back and forth. They typically involve an abusive personal attribute, misplaced sense of entitlement, a lack of competence, understanding, the ability to build a positive command climate. So a toxic subordinate, though, it ought to have an equal place when discussing leadership and organizational values because, as stated previously, every leader is a follower. So, and that's the whole point. It's like, if you think about it, what he talks about here, Ed, is, and I'm going to go over the definition, what his definition of toxic subordinate is. What he's talking about is like, especially in our career field, everyone has a boss. Everyone, from the most junior person to the most senior person, we all the way through. There's no one in our chain that doesn't have a boss. if you think about it. So we have to be a subordinate of some sorts to someone. And then he goes into basically what a definition of a toxic subordinate might be. Basically, is someone who exhibits mannerisms detrimental to a positive climate, readiness, esprit de corps, and the values, and who influences others to follow their errant lead. So basically, it's kind of like being kind of corrupt inside, or just kind of like, that feeling of things. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I got from that. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's funny too because as I go through the article, I'm like, oh, I may have done that before, but you learn and you grow. But yeah, I think it's interesting, and we've talked about the sphere of influence of soldiers before, and sometimes you have that person in your organization who just for whatever reason, whether it be their charisma or just like just their personality, they make people want to gravitate to them. And then if they're a toxic type of follower, then they could spread that toxicity throughout your organization and harm your overall command climate, your culture of the organization. So they can have quite the impact. So I think that's why it's very important to understand, about what we're talking about today with the toxic followership.
Yeah, and then and really what it comes at, like for instance, you said sometimes they go on, like untouched, they just get worse, and that's like one of those things that like I know. One of the things I look for when I go to an organization is I look for those informal leaders.
Yes,
because
that's the term.
if you let an informal leader stay too far informal and don't kind of get them involved and have them doing things, then they do turn into that toxic subordinate. That's what I mean. I've seen it, because why they don't feel that normally it's because they don't feel appreciated, right? Or they don't feel as if though they feel like they're underutilized or things like that. But what they do instead of like kind of going the flow of things, they rebel, and it's like, oh, okay, why are you acting like this, man? That type of thing. So you want to get us started on this next part where basically it's when you become a toxic subordinate. Give us that first one.
All right. So the first one is, I don't think this one's too far off. I think it's pretty easy to understand without even going into what the author says. But engagement in illegal, immoral, or unethical behaviors. I think that goes without saying, right? Like,
right.
As the follower, if they're engaging in these things, then especially if you overlook them, then their toxicity is just spread to you. And we know that it's not easy. I think as a junior leader, a new leader, this is one of the things you kind of struggle with. Somebody's doing something wrong, but you don't want to stop it. And at that point now you've compromised yourself and you've become toxic in a way, whether you be the leader or the subordinate even. I was in a section with several people and I know that they were doing the wrong thing. But I didn't. You go along to get along rather than address that wrong thing. But you're now part of the problem, Brian. At least that's how I see it. And again, as I said, we've all, not even say all, but I have been guilty of a few of these things. And this is one. I'm telling you, these dudes, I knew they were doing the wrong thing. I didn't want to make waves. I went along to get along, and it was the absolute wrong thing to do.
Turning that blind eye, right?
Yeah.
And we don't want to fall. We don't want to fall into that category of snitches get stitches, So
yeah.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't teach my kids that anymore. I told them that all the time. Don't snitch.
Well, on you, yeah. No, definitely shouldn't be telling that.
But it's easy to turn that blind eye to the small things that we don't consider to be bad. We don't consider to be illegal, immoral, unethical. It's just writing something that might on somebody's reports or I don't know, like maybe doing an inventory and marking it, whatever, and taking something out of it. Like those are big things. Those are not like something. Mm-hmm. And I think when you look at that, Ed, like that, to me, that's one of those areas where it's like, I think it's okay to say something one-on-one, just don't snitch about it. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, if it's really, really bad, you got to say something. You have to say something to someone because you can't just let the bad things go. However, I do believe there's an association to creating a little esprit de corps, which we're going to talk about in a few. Mm-hmm. But saying something to somebody personally, like if you're doing something, Ed, and I'm noticing it and I talk to you about it and I don't talk to everyone else about it, I think that's more respectable. That's just in my book, Yeah,
no, I agree. And that's probably how I could have handled the scenario that I was involved. We'll just make it simple. We were leaving Iraq, right? The guy has a fridge, one of the little small fridges in his room, and he sells it. Okay, nothing wrong with that. That's what we do, right?
Right.
So he writes the kids like, oh, I'll come back and get it. Thursday, you guys are moving out of here Friday. So he writes the kid's name on the fridge and dry erase. Kid leaves, he wipes it off. A couple hours later, another dude's out there. He sells it again. And he gives him the money and he's like, we'll pick it up on Thursday. We move out of here on Friday. Well, we moved out on Wednesday. So by the time these guys are going to realize that multiple people have bought this fridge, we're long gone.
Oh my goodness.
And so part of it too is, we always talk about culturals, right? But in my culture at that point, I'm from, the DC, Maryland, DC area, and we're very much, it's not my business. And it was a poor decision. I could have addressed it.
Yeah.
I don't know that it wouldn't have helped. He wouldn't have not done that. We'd have probably had to, to bring it up to another level. I wouldn't have been able to probably handle it at my level. But I didn't say anything because I was like, yeah, it's not my business. Hey, whatever. Mm-hmm. Absolute toxic. Absolutely.
Yes.
Just for the listeners' knowledge, that was like 20 plus years ago. Well, yeah, not yet. Almost 20 years.
Statute of limitation falls in. Huh? Yeah. No, but I mean, I guess you could say in the same way, it's like, don't do anything that's going to get, I was always told, don't do anything that's going to get you put on the cover of Army Times. So,
solid advice.
However, people that get on the cover because of bad stuff, that's not the first time they did something they weren't supposed to. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, it's an escalation that happens. There's things that have taken place throughout a person's career, a person's life. And to me, this is that area. This is that they were a subordinate, a junior. They started doing things they weren't supposed to then. They never got caught. And so they kept doing it. And they kept doing it. And they kept doing it. And it's like, if you see something wrong, say something. I mean, there's nothing, mm-hmm. There's no harm in it. And if if they don't listen to you, so be it. You're going to just don't be the one who's part of it. Right. So don't be on the cover of Army Times, Ed.
Yes. No.
Unless you're like kissing babies and stuff like that.
Shaking hands, kissing babies.
Shaking hands. There you retiring. Go. Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to move on to the very next one.
Oh, yeah. This is a good one.
I like this one because there's an old saying that goes with it. But so failure to join the team you're on. Basically, stop living the last organization you're part of because you're part of this new one and you don't like it. And one of the things that's talking about on, the guy talks about in here is like, hey, my last unit was better, or my last organization was better than this one, and this is why, and all that. It's like, well, if you notice there is something that's not so great, then why don't you make it better, right? Absolutely. I mean, we talk about the hey, leave it better than the way you received it, then improve the organization as a subordinate. It's not hard to, create that conducive environment that people want to be around. And, and you probably just like love the one you're with. That's what I've always heard, like wearing the unit patch. I deployed to one organization. I have, I enjoy my 101st patch, right? But when I moved to Carson and I deployed with that organization, well, then I put on the one that I was with. It just shows support. It shows support, right? Now, since then, I've moved and I put my 101 patch back on because I love that's my, and where I'm at, you can't wear the patch I'm at, on that shoulder.
Yeah.
But it's just I guess I wouldn't say drink the Kool-Aid, but support the organization you're a part of to make it better. You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't. I mean, I do,
Yeah.
but I don't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have a different train of thought. So I had a sergeant major one time tell me, you need to change your combat patch, your patch. And I said, why? And he goes, did Brett Favre show up to the Minnesota Vikings in a Green Bay Packers jersey? And I was like, no, but that's a ridiculous comparison. So I looked at it as I deployed twice with the 1st Cavalry Division for
Right.
27 months. I wear that patch because that's who I spent the most time in the theater with. It wasn't a disloyal thing. And I do get what you're saying. I do. But I think it's bigger than a piece of fabric and Velcro. My own personal belief, right? I can't believe we have a little difference of opinion here, but and I do get what you're saying, but I think that I think it's a little different than you do get those people. Well, like here he says, back at Bragg, and I think if you're using that in a negative light, then yeah, if you're saying, well, this unit sucks. Back at Bragg, we did things this way, but if you say, if you're my platoon sergeant and I say to you, hey, sergeant, in my previous platoon, back at Bragg, back at Drum, we did this, and this, and I thought that worked pretty well. And maybe I'm bringing something new to the organization, and by saying in my previous assignment, maybe I'm showing you that it has worked before. This ain't something I just came up with while I was, sitting outside waiting, having a smoke or whatever. I do not smoke, but just the example. So I think there is a benefit to sometimes pulling on your experiences. And I think it's how you use them. If I'm pulling on my experience to bring something positive to the team, then I don't feel like I'm a toxic subordinate. But if I'm pulling from my experiences to down my current team, then 100% that's toxic followership then. So a little difference of opinion, but
no,
it is.
yeah, no, I know. I get you. No, hey, I put Old A back on, so yeah, I'm wearing. It's just when I was, it was just. I don't know. It's like one of those things that I've kind of learned. It's the same. Like for instance, my mentor once told me, like when you're a senior and the organization has a function, you go to it. Like even if you don't want to be there, you go to it because you got to support your organization. No matter where if you're working in the civilian sector, you're working in the military, you're working in communities, like outreach, whatever. If you're a part of that organization, you support it, and by supporting it, that means showing up to things, extracurricular activities. Like people often, I don't know. I always disagree. People didn't like organizational days and stuff like that. And, basically for those of you who listen, if you don't understand what organizational day is, it's like basically like a large picnic or whatever, and you have fun. You're supposed to have fun.
It's like
people
field
call
day.
it
Field day when you're in school. Remember back in the day,
Yeah.
field day when you're in school. It's like playing sports, having picnic, a little bit of like fellowship, camaraderie, team building. Yeah.
I've never been to one that I was completely miserable. I've always enjoyed, because I think maybe it's the chain of commands that I had or the different command climates. Either I enjoyed my company, I enjoyed the events going on, I enjoyed the food, but I've always enjoyed them. Like I always wondered why people like it's mandatory fun or something. I'm like, no, I'm actually having fun because I want to have fun.
It's the title, Brian. It's the title they put on it. They do call it that. It's mandatory. Once they throw that mandatory label, you know what? If they don't want to be there, don't make them be there. That's how I see it. Just go to work.
Yeah.
You don't have to go. But you're also not just getting a free day off. But I think that mandatory, I think we get wrapped around that. What we do, we get wrapped around mandatory, and you're like, you can't tell me. I'm not going. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to have fun because you say I have to. I also found they were more enjoyable in my athletic days. But as I got older and injury prone, they're not as enjoyable just sitting around. But even then, you know what? You still find a spades game, a dominoes game. You still find cornhole, something that doesn't require as much athleticism. Yeah. Cornhole players are athletes, Brian. Let's get this straight. But yeah, no, I'm with you. But I've also been in organizations that I just did not like being a part of. And you feel like you're hurting the organization by not wanting to participate in those, but you're
Mm-hmm.
not. You're not hurting the organization. You're just making yourself miserable for the sake of being miserable, and you're ruining
Mm-hmm.
your own day that could have
Yeah.
been fun. It could have
Yes.
been,
Yeah.
but you've put such a negative into it that you're like, this is miserable. I
Mm-hmm.
hate this. Did you
Mm-hmm.
really? You're that guy in the corner who wants to have fun, but you're like, no, because this organization sucks, and it's just you're miserable for no
Mm-hmm.
good reason. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you normally get free food, you get fun games to play. I mean, I mean, seriously, like how often at organizational
Yeah.
day do juniors or subordinates have to pay for what's going on? I mean, sometimes they'll say, "Hey, bring a dish, add a dish, or whatever." But even then, it's like you still
Well,
get free. Like hey, bro, I have left organizational days with to go plates just so I knew that I could eat. I have food for lunches down the road. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
oh, so the church organization that my wife and I go to in Tennessee, they once a month it seems like they do like big food gatherings. Bro, usually by the end of it, I'm somewhere up at the table filling up a to-go plate so I can have it for lunch the next
Oh
day because
man.
it's always good. But I don't know. That's just me. I feel like sometimes people they 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 overstretch that negativity or that feeling of how they hate it and stuff so much that they create this veil of
Hmm.
negativity. And if they would just open it up a little bit, they would have fun and they enjoy themselves. So all right, hey, the next one, Ed, I think is a topic that you love to talk about. So why don't you bring it to us?
Hey, this is getting more and more until social media is the preferred forum to let the world know how bad the chain of command or unit is, or the organization is. Man, this is out of control. Soldiers do this and they swear, oh, this page is anonymous, but I got news for you. It's probably not. It's probably
No.
not. But you're venting out and then you don't think about who's looking. And, my favorite part of this whole portion of the article, Brian, there's a couple of really key things. There are many decisions I did not like or thought would lead to failure. Okay, that's true. I've been in those situations. I did what I could to influence that decision or the decisions, and then I went
Mm-hmm.
out and did my job because that's at the end of the day, that's what you're there for. You're out
Yes.
there, you're there to go do your job. Hey, this is not this decision is not good. Here's why. Here's what I think would be a better decision. Boom, shot down. All right, I'm going to just go out and I'm going to execute. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the key from this whole thing is you don't put your dirty laundry out on social media. And this goes beyond your organization. I personally feel that your personal business does not need to be on there. People catching their spouses being unfaithful or people saying, oh, such and such got arrested. That's not social media. You don't need everybody to know those things. And as a society with the internet and then social media, we've gotten so comfortable at just putting all your business out there that
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's private? What's your own world? And it's the same thing. What's your organization's own world? And then what's the consequences when you say something and maybe you didn't understand the big picture and then there is a reason that decision was made, you
Mm-hmm.
know and now you've went out and you've been the blabbermouth on social media and now you look like a clown, because of that. And I think the army has done a better job. There are some actions that can be taken on soldiers now, who are out there on social media doing the wrong thing.
There
So
are.
there are some policies and stuff out there that I think help, but this is
Yeah.
very toxic. And then the influence of it is, my one thing I hate on social media for us, Brian, as an organization is first thing somebody says, I'm on assignment to this place. What's it like? Right? And
Mm-hmm.
it'd be different if they said, well, what's the housing like? What's the school
Yeah.
system like? No,
Yes.
what's it like means I'm going to this. And usually they'll say, I'm going to this battalion, this company. What's it like? And then
Right.
you got some soldier who just freshly got himself some kind of non-punitive action and they're angry at the world right now. And then they get on there and go, you're going to hate it. Sergeant such and such is this, Sergeant such. first sergeant doesn't listen, he's a racist. You're going to get all this stuff. And why? Form your own opinion. Go there. Don't use social media as your guide. Housing market, school system, certain things, got it. But individuals and the man climate, I don't think social media is where it belongs, Brennan.
Yeah, I think what you often get when you get those replies like that, those are the people that are already have a negative taste in it. And let's be serious here. Normally that's probably because they're one of the people who's causing the issues in the organization. They're part of that. They're part of that 10% that you and I have to deal with. That take up 90% of our day. I mean, I had over 400 soldiers. That's 10% is 40. So that means at any given time, I could have had 40 disgruntled soldiers doing bad things that would take up 90% of my time, that the other 360 didn't get to, I didn't get to interact with them as much as I would want to, that type of situation. So when I think about this, I think about the WTF moments, and like, some of this stuff I'm just like, wow, okay, I can't believe somebody posted that. And then some of it I'm just like, why would you do that? Because I mean, I don't understand why somebody would find pleasure in bringing down an organization they're part of. And then they turn around. That same person will turn around and submit paperwork to stay in the service. And it's like, why would you even want to? You know what I mean? Like, if you don't love this and you're downing us, then I mean, hey, sorry about your free paycheck, but no, I don't think so. But that's not the stuff that bothers me. The stuff that bothers me is what you're talking about. It's when you as an individual are posting stuff and you're saying these things that's so, it's unfair. It's a spin on your situation or how you see things. It's not grasping. I don't know. I want to see, the whole, obviously negativity sells, right? That's what the news gets, that's so people think if I put this most outrageous thing out there, then more people will click the button, hit the like, hit the, whatever, and do this, and I get attention. And it's like, well, what about the good stuff? What about, saying what's good is happening and posting nice good pictures of what the organization's accomplishing and things like that. And this can be in the service, and this can be even in the civilian sector too. And if I'm not mistaken, the Army has kind of shifted their momentum towards social media by coming up with policies, but a lot of the policies they have are similar to a civilian organization.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, you've mentioned it before, like where your sister and your brothers work. I bet you they have some type of policy about what they can and cannot say.
Oh, yeah,
I can guarantee it. Yeah. I know your sister does.
Yeah.
So, and if she decided to get on there and say something completely negative about her organization, they can fire her, like nix her from that job, and it's like, people don't think about that before they post something. It's like, come on, seriously. I mean, just post something nice. How about that? That works really well, and you get just as many thumbs up, so.
Yeah.
All right.
So one more thing. So a wise bearded ninja, happy birthday.
The bearded ninja, happy birthday, buddy.
It's his birthday today. But the wise bearded ninja once, for an interview when we were working together, said, if I went to your social media right now, would you be proud of what I saw?
Yeah, he did say in interviews. I do remember that. Like, he used to say, what's the last thing you posted?
Yes. And so when you stop and you think about it, and for me, especially like now, my kids are older, they're adults. But when my daughter was 14, 13, would she be proud of what I put on there? And that went through my mind sometimes when I posted stuff. And, you want to rant. And one quick story. So I've been working on storytelling. We'll talk about that another time. So quick story though. Another, and I'm okay with admitting my flaws. So we were working together and the transportation showed up and there was not a canvas on the vehicles. None of them. There was one vehicle had a canvas. I don't know if you remember this. We were going out, and
so you may want to tell some of the audience. They don't know what canvases are. Maybe
So
I don't know.
there was no cover on the back of the military vehicles that were going to transport soldiers in the wintertime out to the field. And at the time, Staff Sergeant Haley decided he was going to vent, and he was going to vent on social media. And I did. I said it was ridiculous. And I think I was angry because I stopped the NCO and I said, hey, like, there's no vehicles. These vehicles don't have canvas. And this is what the NCO said. He's one of the we call him TCs, but he's basically riding inside with the driver. He said, well, it's not cold in the cab where I'm riding. And so I lost my mind, and I did. I went on social media and I said, who shows up to pick up X amount of soldiers and no canvas when it's 30 degrees outside? Who does that to soldiers? And somebody, Weeby, you know who I'm talking about? Yep. Saw it and pulled me aside. And I immediately deleted it. And I realized the error of my ways, because how's that make my organization look? Yes, it was outside of our organization that we had resourced this thing, this transportation, right? But at the end of the day, I'm posting as a person assigned to this organization, and I just made our organization look poorly on social media. And so that's the one thing when I read this article that came up, and I was like, I'm going to share that because, I mean, you learn. Yeah. I can tell you since that day, I've never posted about my organization on social media, unless it's a positive thing. I have not.
Absolutely.
Things happen negative all the time. It's just the way every organization has their negative aspects. But I learned from him. That's probably one few things he taught me ever. But I learned from him that day that that's not the right answer. So, yeah, thought I'd share that story about social media. And
that sounds familiar. I think I was. It just sounds familiar because I think we've been in that situation before with the no canvases thing.
This was pretty early too.
Yeah, I get you.
I was just able to walk on my own, so it was pretty early.
No, I get you. Yeah, definitely.
But
it's so easy to fall into that trap, though, right?
Yes.
Like, you see something you don't like, and you're just like, I'm gonna rant.
And it's like my mind.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe it's okay to speak your mind to an individual that you're trying to address it to. It just depends, because you don't want it to seem like you're being, toxic in any nature, or you're trying to be a disloyal subordinate. But I mean, I don't know.
I also fed off of some of the loyalty issues within that platoon I was in at the time too.
Right. Yeah. So, hey, this next one. Oh, yeah. I
saw the light bulb go.
Like, you go, bing. Yeah, I know who you were talking about. Yeah. Oh, yay.
All right.
So, hey, here's the fourth. We're going to talk about the fourth one that kind of identifies if you're being toxic. Look at you. You're dropping stuff everywhere. Ed's got it.
I got caught on tape, spilling Coke Zero down my shirt.
Yeah. Got the spot on him.
Let's go.
So the last one is this one. This is the one I can reflect upon, and I've done this in more than one unit. I've done this before. Is allowing disagreements to lead to disloyalty. I want to read what it has to say here, because this when I read this the first time, I thought, "Oh, this is me. I shouldn't have done that." Like multiple times. We hear it in every after action review. So disagreement is not disloyalty. There will be times where you disagree with a decision or course of action your boss makes. Just remember, there will also be times when your subordinates will disagree with your decisions. How you execute the decisions with which you disagree will teach your subordinates how to execute the decisions with which they do not agree. You are doing it right if your subordinate can never tell whenever you like a decision because you are completely professional. All right. This one strikes a chord with me, though. This is harder than it sounds, because often these decisions are very personal. Don't take things personally. Like that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Right. And I've even found myself within the past couple of months in different situations where I felt like I kind of took it personal, and I feel like I kind of like twisted a little bit inside, and I shouldn't act that way. Remember, your obligation as both a subordinate and leader, and execute with the same vigor you would if the idea had been your own. So you want to be able to kind of have that same momentum, that follow, that that's my decision too, because it was your decision. When you allow others to sense your disappointment or lack of confidence in a decision, or fail to support a plan fully, you are a toxic subordinate. So I will tell you, I think I have done this so many times that I couldn't even count, where I didn't like the decision. So it was almost like I was rebelling against it, and I was internally hoping it would fail. Right? Like, because I didn't like it. I don't like it. I hope this fails, or I would speak my mind against it publicly. And I was being disloyal to it, I mean, and I think I've done this to even people that I respect, Joshua Bryan, somebody who I truly respect. And I may have done things and not in a way, I don't think I've ever, like, especially with him, I've ever done anything that would try to change or do something bad, but I would be in such disagreement, like, no, I don't agree with that. Can we be that way? Yes. You don't have to agree, but it's how people see us. It's how we interact. It's the language we use, the words we're using, like, oh man, I can't believe they did that. They're so stupid. I mean, something as small as that. I can't believe that. That was just stupid of them. No, instead, maybe hold that stuff in and look at me. Okay, well, what's my part in this? What is the part in it that I have to own, that I can make the best I possibly be, that can reflect upon who I am as a subordinate, as somebody who wants to make sure that things are getting done right. All right. And there are tons of things. And is it okay to talk about those things? Heck yeah, you have to. If you don't, and you hold that stuff in, me and you, we have conversations before the show. We talk about things. That doesn't mean I'm going to sit here and publicly announce everything we talk about, because that's a friend to friend conversation. That may be a mentor to mentee type situation, a counsel to counselee. It's a learning, those are okay. However, but when we put it out in a public forum, we learned in when we went through ABIC together about, you hold your cards close, especially when we're teaching the students we would have.
Yeah.
We didn't want to put the information in the arena. Like, don't put information in the arena, because once you put it out there, you can't pull it back in. Yeah. So, yeah. I remember specific times that I did this, and it bothers me, because I think to myself, like, was I the example that I want for a subordinate, right? That to show me? Because and this is where I always thought, if I act a certain way towards a leader, then I can't be pissed off or mad, excuse my language, when somebody else does that to me, right? Because I just showed them it was okay to do that, Ed, your thoughts, man?
Well, we're going to start with the most recent thing he said. So I work for a guy who you and I know, and he used to call the first sergeant the last sergeant, because he didn't get along with him. But then he set himself up that you lack that respect for your senior, so why should I respect you?
Yes,
as my senior. Now you've set the stage. You've made it okay, and so same thing. You don't agree with everything. I'm gonna tell you, Brian. I worked with you for one class cycle. Was it one or two? Yeah, one. Did I agree with? Did I agree with everything? Formations? No, I did not. But it's how you handle that tells people he's a professional, especially when your peers know they don't agree with it and you don't agree with it, but you're standing there and you're doing it and you're embracing it, and they're like, that's professionalism. That shows he's professional. Right. Now I'm showing my peers how professional you can be. So I think that's a big thing, bro. And then I'm trying to make sure I get all my notes. So my notes. So in the article it says, like, how you execute something you disagree with is the example for your subordinate. And so what I put is, you put your best foot forward and you execute with motivation, whether you agree with it or not. Now, life, limb, eyesight, boom, I'm not executing. That's a different, safety, illegal, immoral, different.
Yes.
Right? But for the most part, as a leader, I don't agree. We're not going to come to the agreement. But you know what? This is what you want. This is your intent. I'm gonna execute it with motivation, and nobody will know that I don't agree. I loved working for Chief Miss Polk. Loved working for Miss Polk. Did I agree with everything? No. But nobody would ever tell you her and I disagreed on anything. They thought we were connected, and that is what you should be as the subordinate or junior leader. You have to be. It's just the way it is. I'll give you an example. She wanted me to not learn the system, the computer system we used. I wanted to learn the system. And she's like, I need an NCO who can move soldiers and make soldiers work. I said, if that's what you want. And I told her, I want to learn the system. She says, I don't need that. That's not what this organization needs. Okay. I did not like it. Didn't like it. To this day, unless she listens to this episode, she won't know I didn't like it. That's how much I compartmentalized it. I didn't. Yeah. I said, this is why I think I need to learn the system. She said, no, that's not what I need. You're the warrant officer. I'm executing. And that's what I did for 2 years with her. Yeah. She just came up because I was just talking to her the other day. But you go out there and you do it, and the soldiers will tell you, every soldier we work with, none of them will say, no, Chief and Haley, they didn't get along. Never going to happen. So just kind of my little quick story for that particular one, Brian.
Yeah.
I think we've all done it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, my last organization that I was a part of, my commander, he was an 11-year veteran. I was at 22 years. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen a lot more, done a lot more. He's still a little upset that I'd never done a JRTC or NTC, that I made it this far and I never had to do that. I've never done one. Not one.
I hope you go to a command sergeant major slot and you go back to back, one to the other, just straight train from one to the other.
Yeah, but
now I'm disappointed.
But I've deployed multiple times, and it's worked every time for me. However, I mean, people, I guarantee you could ask anybody in that organization if I disagreed with him at all, and they were like, "No, man, they were always on the same notebook. They were always together, and we were always together." Yes, but if I had something I didn't agree with, close the door and we talk about it, right? And then when we're done, which obviously it's his decision. He was the commander. He's responsible for everything there. I give my advice. I say, hey, this is what I think. Take it or leave it. Open the door back up. I'm following him 100%, as long as it's not illegal, immoral, and unethical. That's it. And in getting people to understand that, but I think there's a flip side to that, Ed. I think there's a flip side. To be a good subordinate also is to be a good leader. At the same time, if you're noticing when you're let's say you're announcing some information, and if you're reading the room, right, and you're catching different, maybe people's facial expressions or how they writing things down, you can tell they don't feel comfortable with it. Then if you're reading a room, then you say, hey, I'm catching here, like, maybe you guys don't like this. What are y'all's ideas? What do y'all think you want to do? So that does now is it helps them buy in, right? So now they can own some of it, because if it's their idea, why not make it work? So I think there's two sides of it, man. But it is like what you said. You and your warrant officer, the two of you all, you didn't disagree in front of the Joes. And it makes us successful as a team, as a leadership team, to do that. But also at the same time, why not do that as subordinates too? Like, why would you have a massive disagreement in front of everybody? Does everybody have their tipping point? Absolutely. They're going to get mad. They're going to blow up. But it's pulling them back in, and having them realize, hey, especially, man, you think about when you were young, like you were young Joe, like how easy was it to just let everything out, and you're just like, oh, and then like 2-3 hours later, you're like, I should not have done that, or you didn't care, so, but that's just one of those things I look at, man.
Always. And I think too, so with my example with Miss Pope, I mean, the other thing is, if you do it in front of your troopers, you do it in front of your subordinates, your juniors, you're showing them a fracture, and then they'll exploit that. They'll exploit that every time. They'll start playing mommy daddy games with you and whoever to try to cause that to open that thing up some more and make the divide wider and get their way. So that's why one of the key things, you cannot do it in front of, because you're giving weakness, you're showing weakness of the team. And then I've seen first sergeants and commanders fight and argue and close the door, but if you hear screaming and shouting, the door doesn't stop that. The military buys the cheapest doors we can. So you have to also have that control and understand, because then now we all know they're fragmented. You already know your command team is fragmented. Now your culture is bad because you start dividing camps, and you have ones that are team, Captain America, and you have team, Sergeant Fury, and you're just like, oh, which one's right? And so you got to watch that stuff. So
you're absolutely correct. Yeah, it's just that was one of all this article. That's the one that struck the most chord with me. It's just basically allowing disagreement turn into disloyalty, and then you almost create this corruption thing in there. All right, so we have the last few. We have 7 small topics to go over real quick in our last 10 minutes of the show.
Yeah, let's see.
And this is flipping it. This is how tips of how to be a great subordinate. All right. So you want to start us off?
I do. So the first thing is, do not make your problem your boss's problem. Right. Don't be afraid to ask for help, and do not wait until failure. All right. So this is very simple. You want to try to handle things and issues at your level, right? I don't need to elevate them. We say in the military all the time, handle it at the lowest level possible. So that's what this is. This is basically saying handle it at the lowest level. But don't let it get out of control because you're afraid to ask for help at some point. Yeah. So, you and I can bounce ideas off you, and you can say, man, I really don't know the answer to that. But you may also point me at somebody who does. You may say, well, have you talked to First or Sergeant Major Bryant? No, I haven't. I didn't even think of him. Okay, well, maybe give him a call. And then when that doesn't work, right, then, you got to be able to say, hey, I need help. Like, I'm at a loss here. And the key to this whole thing for me, Brian, is, he says in an article, don't wait to drop a bomb in a meeting. This is an issue. There's a problem. Yes. It's out of your control. You haven't been able to find somebody who can help you with it. Don't let the snowball effect. Don't let it roll out of control to an avalanche. Bring it up before it gets out of control, so that somebody can step up. Maybe that person you didn't know knew can say, "Oh no, this is how we can do this. We can do that. This is how we can fix it." And then there's going to come that relief from you. So I think that's the real gist of it here, Brian, is, one, don't shoot a red star cluster, as we say, in the sky immediately. Sit back, examine the problem, try to figure out your own course of action. If you can, try to bring somebody in to help you with it. Don't be afraid to say, hey, first sergeant, I'm well. Especially when you've been in the seat as a first sergeant. I'm not able to get this soldier to come to work. I've done this and this and this and this. And, first, I'm really at a loss here. Can you help me? And then what you're going to do, because I know Brian, is you're going to say, well, did you think about this or this? Did you peel back the onion and find out why he's not coming to work? Oh, the train's on strike and he rides. This is somebody else's scenario, but he rides the train to work every day. The train's on strike. So now he's got to rely on a cab. Cabs are not. So, that's the solution. So don't be afraid to ask for help, and then don't let it just turn into an explosion.
Yeah. And I think, I think that one plays well into the next one. It really does. It helps. In the very next one is basically, and this is a metaphor in a sense, people, if your boss asks for a pizza, just bring him a pizza. The boss shouldn't have to tell you how to make the pizza. Shouldn't tell you where to get the pizza. Just bring him a pizza. He says, hey, give me a cheese pizza. Just bring him a cheese pizza. You know what I mean? And obviously, don't go buy your boss a cheese pizza. That's not what it means. If I give you a mission, if I give you a task, just go do the task. If you don't know, if you're not familiar with the task, yeah, you can ask questions and whatnot. However, in most cases, the task you're receiving, people have done, you have done. It's just, looking for the step by step on how to get it done, to make sure you don't upset someone. Just get it done. That's all you have to do. All too often, what we want to do is we want to ask all these questions to get us through, to make sure we've done it perfectly to what somebody wants. Well, no, that's called critical and creative thinking. If we use critical and creative thinking, that shows that we have the ability to lead one day. So then we show our potential for of performance to become promoted in the position that we want to go into. Stuff like that, right? When I have the people that I worry about the most, Ed, are the people who come to me with every little detailed question about it, and it's like, no, I don't need to answer all these questions for you. Just go do it. Sergeant Major Brian, and I bring him up because he obviously he taught me the bacon and cake thing, and he has this great whole elaborate story about bacon and cake, and I love the bacon and cake. It's like, if I tell you I want a chocolate cake, just bring me a chocolate cake. Now, if you don't understand how to do that, I can help you make that cake, but you're not going to like the fact that how I'm helping you make the cake is I'm going to show you every little step. Instead, just make a chocolate cake, bring it to me. I'll let you know if it's what I'm looking for. I just need one. You know what I mean? Same thing. Yeah. I mean, that's just how I see it. What are your thoughts, man?
Yeah. So I think that this is very much about meeting the intent or the guidance that's provided by your supervisor, your boss, right? Intent. And then I think that for me, I think if you see a way to meet the intent, but you can see some other things along the way, then meet the intent and then provide that other information to your boss. So discipline initiative, you could do that, but really you want to make sure you meet his intent. And that's what this is saying. I want a pizza. Don't bring me cookies. Bring me a pizza with pineapple, because it does go on pizza, and ham, extra cheese, and jalapenos.
I won't disagree.
So yeah, I think that's the bottom line. This is like all about meeting the intent.
Yeah, I was looking for something. Oh crap. All right, no. Yeah, meeting intent, discipline initiative. You were just like, I was like, oh my goodness, is he going to tell us all of Mission Command? So
no. But I think it does. This is another one though. Bring the boss the pizza plays into our next one, Brian.
Yeah, go ahead, give it to us.
Do the job you are asked to do, not the job you want to do. Again, been here. So in the article, he talks about the disgruntled staff guy. That's me. I was the disgruntled staff guy. I was. I came here from the NCO Academy. I loved being a facilitator. I got here. I've never been on staff, which a lot of people find difficult to believe in all my years. I had never been on staff, and now I'm on staff. And I was like, ugh. And then they said, oh, there's these other taskings you could do. And one of them was to go instruct BLC, right? They were going to go instruct the basic leaders course satellite. And I was like, ooh, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that because that's what I love to do. But I wasn't thinking about my organization. I wasn't thinking about who would have to pick up my slack at work.
Yeah.
And this was actually the job I'm in now. This was where I was at this point. And I started thinking about other than what I wanted to do. And that's what this is saying. Like, do what you're asked to do. I was asked to do international logistics coordination. I wanted to be a facilitator. That time has passed. It goes back to what we talked about earlier, right? Well, back at Campbell, I was a facilitator. And I still can be a facilitator, but make sure it fits into what I'm there to do. And I think that's what this is really saying, Brian.
Yeah. So they have a saying here at school that I've noticed, I've caught on to, and I've actually found myself in that crazy trap. They talk about, so here they say, hey, don't be the best first sergeant in your organization as the sergeant major. Or what they've also said is like, don't be the best platoon sergeant as a first sergeant in your organization. Don't, do what's your job. Don't do what other people's jobs, just, it's the whole flow of things. They've got to learn how to do what it is that they got to do. And doing all this, there's so many people out there, Ed, that will, they will do everything but their job. They will do all these extra whatevers.
All the extra. Oh, we had a guy.
But
I had a guy. I had a guy, I worked with him. I had a guy who was really good for this. Like, all these other things, man, but you need to do our job. And you can do your job great. That's what you need to do. Now, if you can do your job great and then do all the extra stuff too, not a problem.
Yes.
We're okay with that.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So in the last organization, so I was getting to also is I did have a guy who was volunteering for all these different things, but he wasn't doing his actual job, like his actual job in the Army. And I said, no, got to draw him back. Got to get him back in. I said, you can't, I can't have you doing this, and this for the organization. Let's let other people do it. And he literally told somebody that he got fired from it. And I pulled him aside. I said, hey man, you think you got fired from doing this other stuff? He's like, well, it just kind of feels that way. I'm like, well, then obviously I didn't verbalize it enough to you. You're critical in this job, and we need you to do your job. These other things are really nice, but if they're falling behind in your section on that, I need you involved in that because that's the most important thing for you. Okay. And I hope I got, he turned around, but yeah, that's definitely a big thing. And I think that, man, it's like these things are falling right in order perfectly. It's almost like he wrote the article on purpose. Understand how leaders make decisions and try to think that way. Yeah. That can be tough. But it also can be easy another time. It's literally thinking through a decision. Well, hey, why did they do it that way and not this way? Well, this had been easier. Why did they pick that course of action versus this course of action? Well, maybe there were things that you can't see. Maybe there are details that are being thought about that could outweigh other areas. And, I think with that, that helps you individual subordinates become better leaders in the first place, because now what it's doing is it's allowing them to think creatively and critically, like I mentioned earlier, and to start, looking at the full picture and not just their little slice of the pie. Because I think what happens with this is why we often, we go against their decisions, what we mentioned earlier, is because we're only thinking of ourselves. We're not thinking of the organization, right? Let's say in the Army, as a platoon sergeant, you're worried about the whole platoon, not just one squad. As a first sergeant, you're not just worried about one platoon, you're worried about the whole company. And it's learning to open up your aperture and seeing the larger picture, and that's what I try to learn. It took me a little while to learn it. But after I seen it, I was like, oh, I really do have to worry about the whole piece of pie, the whole pie, not just my small piece, But yeah, understanding the decision process.
Yeah. So this is when I worked for you. This is something I learned during that time. One, I became very fluent in Brian and his thought process. And to the point where some other guys that we work with who had worked with you for quite some time was like, hey, what do you think? What do you think Weber will say about this? And I'd be like, I think he's going to say, he's going to want to go this route. So it became very much hey, he's like, he is the interpreter for the leadership of Weber. But I knew you always believed in making the organization bigger, not making third platoon better, not making, my squad better. You always were looking for that bigger picture improvement. So, yeah, this is what I told you when we started. I have one from my time with you. And this is what I did learn this from you during our time together. But it's funny. Oh, go ahead.
No, it is. I mean, I think when you start thinking about that way, though, Ed, you think about the organization in general. You don't just think about your little piece of the pie. You become one, more knowledgeable about the whole organization. The other thing is you start looking at things way different. I don't know. It's just like, it's almost like you see the things that you never seen before that you could always have seen. It's just, you have to take yourself out of that pigeonhole of just you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I think that feeds so perfect. And the point number 5, Brian, is it's solve your boss's problems, which sounds so crazy. So when I first wrote it, I was like, solve my boss's problems. Wait a minute. that doesn't seem like that could be a thing. But what it's really saying is you have to get outside of yourself, like we were talking about. And honestly, it's all summed up in the very last sentence of the paragraphs. If you want to be a hero, solve your higher headquarters problems. So you need to be able to not just identify problems in your organization, right? So if you see, let's say we're going to use military, but just understand for our listeners, it's not stuck to just this is works in the military. But if I see there's a problem with junior leaders assuming their leadership roles and the development of junior leaders, then maybe I sit down with you and we brainstorm and say, okay, well, what about a leadership council? What about having junior leaders meet, bi-weekly and get mentored by some of the sergeant first classes and the master sergeants, right? To help. What's another one I can think of? Height and weight. So junior leaders may not be very comfortable doing a height and weight to actually, weigh the person. And then we do the tape test around the waist, the neck for the males. And, maybe they're not comfortable doing that. But maybe what if I said, okay, everybody who ever worked at a non-commissioned officers academy, you're going to be my lead taper. And then I'm going to put a junior sergeant with you, one of the new promotes, so that you can show them the proper way to do it. Well, I just solved a problem for the whole unit when they're like, well, we don't have enough good, quality tapers. Well, now you do. I just gave you a whole bunch of them. So that's what this is finding a way to solve these small, it don't have to be a major problem, but like I know. So even here, there's 700 plus people, but we're senior heavy. And so the sergeants, I feel like this is a robbery for the sergeants. They get promoted here to Sergeant E5 because they're on a 2 stars level staff. So when they go to a unit and they come to you, Brian, at a battalion, they may have some growing pains because they're used to dealing only with seniors. But if I can teach them the height and weight here, not only did it help my organization, but down the road, I'm going to help your organization. Because now you've got this staff sergeant who knows what they're doing when it comes to the regulation for height and weight. And that's a bonus for you. Force multiplier. That's the term.
Force multiplier. I personally love using that in people's NCORs. Hey, such and such is a force multiplier because of blah, 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 blah. So solving your boss's problem. Here's, so I didn't always agree with a particular leader that I had in my previous organization. But one of the things he changed was it wasn't soldier, it was the promotion boards. On the promotion boards, the questions were geared towards more like what is expected of those sergeants or whatever they were trying to reach. Like, for instance, questions on how to properly dispatch and all the dispatch procedures. If you're asking those questions, what you're doing is you're incubating that thought process. So at least they looked it over. So now hey, you're knowledgeable of this. It kind of helps solve that higher echelon's problem of, we haven't been doing it correctly. And that's what I'm like, man, that's a good idea. So I'm going to use that one day. I want to use that to be able to say, okay,
that is a good idea, actually.
Yeah, why not? Because you're teaching them how to do so. And now the commander doesn't have to worry so much anymore about, hey, do we know how to do this? Well, yeah, they've been studying for the board for months, So so solving those bigger problems, I think that's a key thing. It doesn't mean you're kissing somebody's rear end or anything like that.
No.
It's about the organization and making the organization better. That's what it's about. So
right. So you're making the Army better. If you develop leaders, you're making the Army not just your local organization, but so much bigger. So I mean, in the civilian sector, you can find a way to do that. You can find a way to make a huge impact in your organization and your whatever the hierarchy is, the next higher organization. So I think that's important. Yes.
The next one flows right into that. It's execute and report, right? We have to, as leaders, we have to trust our subordinates. At the same time, our subordinates have to trust us to allow them to execute a mission and then just report back, hey, X is done. This is what we figured out. This is what we learned. This is what we realized we needed to change, things like that. Go out and lead with confidence is what he talks about. If you understand the commander's intent, which I don't know I really like to know what they would consider. I guess they would say vision on the civilian sector, but the commander's intent is very much like a vision for
I
like a
think
vision
so.
statement. But go out and execute that commander's intent. If you know the commander's intent, then you're already armed with everything you need to know to get the job done, and execute and report. It's not that falls back on that. There's not enough time in the day for the leader to tell you every little process, every little step. They say, hey, this is your task, then go execute it.
Yeah.
Execute it and come back and report on it. Like, don't forget to report the back brief part, because they're gonna, that leader is probably gonna be sitting and thinking, I wonder how Ed did on such and such. I wonder if he got that done. Well, just come back and report and let him know, hey, this is what we figured out, and it worked. So we're gonna keep going with that process, that type of thing. So executing and report it's a big thing. It's not something, if I know the vision of this organization is to do X, Y, and Z, I have a lane to operate in now. I know what my parameters are. I also know not to go illegal, immoral, unethical. All right. So, and I also know in the back of my mind, how do I support the organization? Well, it's doing things to make it better. And that's it. So, what's your thoughts?
No. I thought that you did an excellent job with execute and report. I mean, and then when I saw this, of course, I go straight to, providing some kind of feedback and to when you do something, when you accomplish whatever, you need to be able to go back and say, all right, yeah, that's done. Here's what we did. Here's what worked. Here's what didn't. AAR it. Got to AAR it on the backside. So, and I think that then allows you to use that win, the positives, and develop your strategy moving forward for the organization to continue to get those wins and then improve on your weak areas and just get stronger at that, whatever that task, that thing is. So,
right. Yeah.
I mean,
I think the very next one falls. It really helps with that too, though.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Don't put your boss in a box when it comes to decisions.
Yes.
So execute and report. That's great, but don't execute and report at 1700 saying we've got a problem. How long have you known about this problem? Oh, we knew about it 2 days ago. Whoa. You're putting me in a box now. Now I got to make a decision that can't be actually thought upon. My biggest problem was, I was a first sergeant at a unit, and I deal with all the personnel actions type of thing to make sure things are taken care of, go to the commander or wherever they need to go. And somebody brings me something at my last post, 1500 was the release time on Fridays. They say, hey, listen, let soldiers go at 1500. Well, when a soldier shows up at my door at 1500 and everyone's gone and they say, I got this problem. And I'm like, well, how long did you know about this? Oh, we knew about it Monday. It's Friday. Why are you telling me today?
Why are you here now?
Yeah. And what it does is it puts us in that confined box, because what if it's an emergency that the soldier needs something taken care of? Like right now, they're going to lose money. They're going to lose a place to live. They're all these different things. It's a constant reminder, hey, bring these things up. If it's something you cannot control, you cannot handle, you got to tell someone, you got to bring it up. I can't fix the things that I don't know about. And putting a leader in that box, putting them in that constraint, what's that say about you? You know what I mean? Like, what's it say about your proactivity? What's it say about your potential of being a leader yourself? That's just one of those things. And nothing would make me more upset than somebody bring me something last minute and say, oh, we got to get this done. Well, I'm sorry, but why is it an emergency on my part now? Because it was an emergency on your part that you didn't consider an emergency previously, So, but yeah, that's always one that I've had a problem with, Ed.
Yeah, this is one I'm super guilty of this when I was a kid. Remember, you used to have to get your report card signed by your parents?
Oh, yeah.
If the grades just weren't where they were supposed to be, I'd like give it to my dad at like 9:00 at night as I'm going to bed. So hopefully the punishment will be tomorrow instead of tonight. This is for our younger listeners. This is when you used to have to carry your report card home and get it signed and carry it back to school and turn it in. And I used to drop it on his desk, 1,700 hours. I got to go to bed now. So, good night. Keep it real. See you later. Oh, man. But this goes into, you were talking about the military decision-making process from some of the curriculum you're studying. But this is where the course of action development comes in, and different courses of action, understanding your boss. If I'm going to develop 3 courses of action for something, and the first one is absolutely way out of character for my boss, then why give it to him? Why? If you know he's not going to go that route. So instead of robbing him of that one, just so you can say, I gave you 3. Why am I doing 3 fingers? I gave you 3. Give him 3 that would actually fit into his decision-making preferences. And that comes from knowing your boss and knowing, their tendencies. I think this is really big for us. I think it's very big in any organization. Like, don't try to put your boss where he has no choice, because he has a choice. Just because you showed up at 1,700 on Friday, that does not mean he's signing. Maybe you're going to inconvenience yourself, because he's going to say, we need to revisit this on Monday morning so that we can make sure we're making the right decisions before I sign anything. So I think that's what really feeds into this one, Brian.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And, and so let's sum this up before we wrap the show up completely. But, all too often, Ed, it seems like people are always so worried about trying to be a great leader and developing to be a great leader, but there's never any thought process in what it is required to be a great follower also. And that's the whole point of today's show. It's like we all fit into that somewhere. We all do. Absolutely. We all have got, whether it's household 6, if the wife says, yes, ma'am, we sure are, that type of thing.
We're doing that.
Yes, we are. We're going there. Yes. But it's understanding, though, that you have to learn that both sides are important. If it's almost like a scale, you want to keep it balanced. You don't want to disrupt the force. You know what I mean? There'd be a great disturbance in the force.
No, it makes sense. I really believe unchecked toxic followership could very easily lead to a toxic leader. We're in a system where automatic promotions happen very easily. If you don't check that toxic follower, you're going to have a bigger problem, because now you have new arrivals being mentored and led by a toxic leader who you let get away with being a toxic follower. And now he's creating his own, or she's creating her own. So I think that's kind of the key takeaway for me, Brian.
Absolutely. So Ed, if people wanted to ask us questions regarding leadership or followership or just any in general, they just want to know, hey, where did you get that cool Hard Rock Cafe hat? Something like that. If they want to ask you something, where could they do this, Ed?
Well, one, I got the hat from Munchen. They could ask us at the Instinctive Influencers social media pages on Facebook or on the gram at 101 Influence. They can also find us at YouTube. Subscribe, like, comment on YouTube, and they could throw a question in the comments and we'll get back to you there too. So those are a couple of them. And then, of course, there's always the trusty Instinctive Influencers podcast website. You can find that with Professor Google very easily. There's 101. We really got to work on the graphics for the show.
Well, it'll look better at the bottom when I finish producing it.
You would think that we'd have got this down by now, but we're not doing a lot of lifelong learning if that's where we're at with graphics.
It does the scroll by one.
Oh, oh man. Yeah. But yes, check us out. Social media, the website, the YouTuber. Check us out.
Yeah. Let us know what you think. You can always, and if you know us and you're friends with us on these platforms, because obviously if you're not a friend with me on there, then you can't ask me anything because you can't see anything of me. You have to be a friend first. Ask us questions. If you want to just like I've gotten messages just like directly to me that Ed couldn't see through our thing, and he's also received the same thing. And hey, let us know what you're thinking and stuff. But hey, next show, Ed, we're gonna hit upon a topic that you just brought up recently, and we're gonna talk a little bit about it. We're probably gonna be recording right after this. We'll see how much time you have. But yeah. but we're going to talk about a little about community service, and we have a lot to talk about, but we're going to try to condense it enough to kind of like, and I want to hear some thought process on that. But what is it out there, listeners, that you think helps create being a better follower? That's my question for you today. Okay. What is it you think will help make you or help other people become better followers that will develop into leaders? All right. Other than that, Ed, I have nothing else unless you do, buddy.
No, I think that's it. I think it's another great, successful show, Brian.
Yeah, it definitely was. I've enjoyed it. I always enjoy it. And I always miss it when you're not around. So, but with that, I am Brian. This has been the Instinctive Influencers podcast. We thank you so much for listening. We hope you have a great day. Stay classy, San Diego. That was horrible.